Well, welcome everyone for this panel about the Rural Coliving Movement. It's a pleasure to be moderating. I'm very happy to tackle this subject because I feel like it's a bit different from the rest of the programming we've had so far. And today we have two great panelists with us. I'm going to let them introduce to you in a sec. We are waiting for one more, but we will see if she's joining. So Steve, maybe, would you like to introduce yourself?
All right. Hey, hi everyone. I'm Steve, co-founder and CEO of Anyplace. Anyplace is a marketplace that provides flexible term, fully furnished accommodations to digital nomads and remote workers. We specialize in 30+ day bookings and work with co-living operators like Outpost and hotel and vacation rental operators like Selena. We are currently available across more than 30 countries in 300 cities. So, yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you, Steve. David, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thanks. Yes, I'm David Abraham of Outpost. Outpost was born of my own experiences traveling and working about 2012, 2013. I was spending one day in Tokyo looking around this coffee shop I was in and seeing all of these people working. And I wondered, well, I knew I was there, I was just traveling through, but what were all these people here and why did they have to be in a coffee shop working? Why couldn't they be in an idyllic location? So we set up Outpost in Bali. It's got started in 2016 with 3 locations in Bali and 1 in Cambodia. And we focus on serving the remote work, the anywhere worker population. So what started as a side project for me in 2016 has turned into a full-time affair with co-living, if you will.
This is a great story. I totally relate to what you are saying right now. I'm myself a remote worker, and I've been actually experiencing myself the rural co-living for the past few months, and I feel like it's a great niche of the co-living industry, and I feel like there's really a movement that's being created right now, and thank you for being part of that. So let me ask you the first question. So David, you were saying that you started Outpost in 2016. Could you maybe give us an insight on how the rural co-living movement evolved during that period of time, maybe in terms of demand and also in terms of offer?
Sure, I can. And before I start, let me be clear. When I'm talking about co-living, and we're in a rural place, but we're really in an idyllic destination. We're in Bali, we're in Cambodia. We're not, for the most part, focused on serving the domestic clientele. So we're destination co-living. We're a little bit shorter term stay than a typical co-living than you guys may be. But I think what we've seen is really the thesis of our entire organization become validated far faster than we ever thought. I think COVID has brought home the realization that remote work is a thing, and I don't have to discuss remote work. In 2015 and 2016, when I was working remotely and starting this up in Bali, I told people I was in Singapore, or I would tell people that I would work with in New York. Just contact me any morning of the week and we can have a phone call. I would hide my location. And I think what we've seen over the past, since March 10th of last year, is that people realize remote work is a thing. It will remain a thing, and that thing will be a big part of our lives. And so when people are untethered from their offices, and when this starts to shake out and people will go back to the office, but not full-time as they once were, it opens up a new market that Outpost can really be a part of. So Outpost really serves those travelers who are looking for a community to be a part of, a place to stay, a place to work, and a plug-in travel option. And so whether they come to Bali or Cambodia or other places, we're able to meet that need. And in terms of the need of the people who've come over the past 2015 to now or early 2020, it really hasn't changed. What I think has changed is the amount of people and the type of people, in terms of people who have more traditional jobs are able to break away for 2, 3, 4 weeks at a time to come to a place like Outpost.
Thank you, David. And could you maybe give us also an insight on, so you were saying that it's more the type of people that has changed. Could you maybe explain that a little bit more?
Sure. When the term digital nomad came from people who were tied to their computer, and it was initially coders and people who could break away, like marketers and life coaches. And we'd see those who had 1 or 2 or 3 person offices or were in those fields were dominating the folks who would come in 2015, 2016. And slowly we realized that we're all tech workers in some way, and that the tools that we are looking at in front of us are quite mobile. And whether you're an architect or whether you're a manager or a quality control expert, you can do a lot of your work from your laptop, and therefore you're just as mobile as someone who's a coder. And so that realization is really happening. And we saw that happen in 2018, 2019, but now in 2021, 2022, we're seeing increasingly people who have what I would determine traditional jobs starting to venture out for weeks or months at a time.
Thank you. Steve, so you are running the platform Anyplace. Would you have any insider data for us or trends around the rural bookings, the co-living movement in general, regarding your platform specifically?
We've seen some interesting trends before and during the pandemic. Before the pandemic, more than 80% of our bookings were generated in urban areas like New York City, LA, and San Francisco. However, after the pandemic, during the pandemic, many people moved out of urban areas and more bookings were generated in rural areas. For example, in the United States, we have seen increase in search volume for Denver, Austin, that kind of cities on the platform. And as remote working has become the norm, people are able to work from anywhere, right? So they are interested in living in the rural areas for more different, experience. And also, currently, about 50% of our bookings are generated outside of the United States. Interesting trend that people are still moving during the pandemic. So I believe this trend will continue to grow as more and more people in the United States vaccinated. So this is pretty interesting trend.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Steve. And so, in general, what changes have you done maybe in your product or offering to attract more people from the urban areas maybe to the rural areas?
So I guess that one, I'll take that one. For us, we've always seen ourselves as a part of a larger, for lack of a better word, ecosystem, in the sense that we're the escape for people who want to get away. And so we think there's a lot of opportunities for us to partner with people in cities, because it's a different lifestyle. And we've always haven't looked at it necessarily as competition per se. And a lot of we can get to some of this later, but a lot of the dynamics between a city place and a rural place, when you're trying to squeeze every dollar out of a square meter in the city, you have more of that luxury not to do that in a rural place. And so the metrics that we use may be slightly different than other co-living providers, because we can offer more services. We can offer a different type of offering than you can in the city, where you're really reliant on living revenue and can be tied to growing the number of rooms, because that's your only source of revenue and margin. So that's what's a little bit different in the rural spaces. And I think the corollary is that a space in a cheaper real estate market brings in less revenue per square meter than a space in an urban area.
Mm-hmm. Yes, And for you, Steve, have you seen any changes regarding the platform in particular, or I'm not sure here
Yeah.
if you have.
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest changes during the pandemic was the number of people working remotely while remaining full-time employees, right? So tech giants like Facebook and Twitter, they allow their employees to work remotely on a permanent basis, right? This is a huge paradigm shift how they work. They can work from anywhere with income, right? They don't have to quit their job to become a digital nomad, right? In the past, to become a digital nomad, most people had to become independent, either by freelancing or becoming a consultant, something like that. But now they don't have to, and they can work from anywhere, right? And so the big change is that population of remote workers with income has increased, and how to attract them is going to be more important for co-living operators, going forward. The big changes, it will be more important for co-living operators to provide a work environment. As I mentioned earlier, more and more people are working remotely from various locations while remaining full-time employees. But these kind of people, they care very much about their work environment, such as internet speed, work desk, work chair, monitor, something like that. And if co-living operators can provide, those amenities to them, it will be a huge differentiator, right? And in fact, we launched remote work friendly accommodations called Anyplace Select. Yes, just yesterday, we provide fully functional accommodations with gigabit internet and office setup. So we will see how it goes, but this is a huge change, how we what we provide to our customers.
Sandra, there's one other thing I want to highlight it can be a big distinguishing factor from places like ours or Sun & Co. or places that are in more destinations that people want to typically go to on vacation, is that people need this plug and play community. They need this sense that they're a part of something, that they want to meet other folks. And in a city, when you're choosing a co-living destination, you have more of that there. You've got friends, or you have your job, and you need something to take a little piece of that concern away. Where are you going to sleep? And you might choose it because there are cool people who are staying there, or the price point is right, or the terms are right. And that's the main key. But when someone's coming out to an outpost, they don't know really anybody. And if they're going to spend some time there, weeks or months, they've really got to feel they're a part of it. So the promise for us when people come to an outpost is that we're really providing this immersive environment of culture and thought, that we're this place on the cusp of society where great ideas and entrepreneurs meet, and people want to come out and be a part of that. And that's critical to what our offering is, that I think if we're in a city offering, that's not as crucial.
Thank you, David. That brings me actually to my next question, which is maybe, according to you or to your experience, what makes a successful co-living experience into a rural co-living space? Maybe we can compare it to a urban space, or maybe just what is specific to those kind of experiences.
So for us, it goes back to the point I was making, is that when people are coming out to Bali or Cambodia, they don't know really anybody. And so to make people comfortable right off the bat, whether we welcome people in by name, we remember their name, whether we give permission for people to talk to each other. And too often I'm looking at the Nomad forums, and there was a forum in Ubud, Bali, and for those who haven't been there, Ubud, Bali is well known for its vegetarian restaurant scene. And I was reading one evening, someone said, "Hey, I'd love to go out to vegetarian food in this forum. Who wants to go?" And a number of people were saying, "I'd love to go. Let's meet and we'll decide where to go." And what we do at Outpost is to make those interactions happen in real life. So people can go up and talk, and we give permission by creating this environment so that people can go up and talk to each other, that they don't have to swipe right or click like before they can meet someone, and they can really feel like they're immersed in a place. Because moving around from place to place is an amazing experience. You can wake up in Thailand, you can be in Portugal or Brazil within 24 hours, but to really feel like you're a part of something, and that's critical. And that's what I think the rural spaces or the destination spaces have an opportunity and must take advantage of to remain relevant over the long term.
Thank you, David. I'm curious also now, maybe we can share with the audience. And by the way, if you have any question, please drop them in the chat. There'll be a Q&A at the end of the session. In terms of, I think that what is also interesting in those panels we have during the summit, it's really to showcase to our audience different insight from experts of the industry. So now I would like to ask you if you, within the years, have you had different pivots in your business models, and why did you have those pivots?
Sure. I think the first thing that we realized is that we're in the hospitality space, and it may sound silly, but when we set it up, we knew there were two things that we needed: a space and then the people, and the people being the type of community that we wanted to curate around us. And so we set up a space, and we found a workspace and a couple villas. And people were kind of flooding to the villas and then coming to the workspace. And we realized, there's something there. And we thought about, how do we expand? Well, it was to get more villas. It didn't take long to realize that getting a string of villas in a city or in a town like Ubud in Bali, in a country that, in a developing country, is going to be hard to do. And we looked across the river from our location and saw a hotel. And mid 2016, we realized that our future is in larger properties. So I think the pivot was really all right, kind of the professionalization pivot, and realizing how we can put everything together into one location and creating a product that is meaningful. We've offered different types of products and things along the way, but we haven't had a major pivot, say, to move all online, for example, during this crisis, or something to that effect.
Thank you, David. And for you, Steve, have you had any pivot in your business model?
Not really, but yeah. One thing is, as I mentioned, that we started operating our own unit, a few units though, with work environments. It's not pivot, we are still platform, but we'd like to test that kind of accommodation to see, customer demand. So that's not pivot, but that's totally new thing we are trying to provide. So again, we provide accommodation with, pretty high-speed Wi-Fi, and we provide, perfect work environment, such as standing desk, a work chair, monitor, key light, webcam, microphone. That's perfect, office setup, right? But usually in traditional hotels, Airbnb, don't provide it. So it's gonna be a huge differentiator. And then if it works people, it attracts, remote workers, very much. It will be a good, case study for every operators, right? So we'd like to test it first, and then we'd like to share the knowledge with, our partners.
Thank you.
I think like a product like that is great. It really focuses on the need of the moment. It highlights some of the things that we see, that their professionalization of services that nomadic workers will need. And I think that's smart now. But I think in the future, in 3 years from now, 4 years from now, that stuff will be commonplace. And it's just like when people used to come to us first, they came to us and said, is the internet strong? Is it reliable? And of course it was, but we never thought that the internet and the speed and the reliability would be a long-term differentiator for us. And it's the same thing with these types of services. A green screen, which is great. We you know, we're rolling them out, so it's great to see any place doing that. But I think they'll become standard place. So you can get ahead of the curve by offering these things, but in the long term, everyone will be getting on board to offering something like that very, very soon.
Yes, yes, indeed. I spent a month in Costa Rica, and I actually decided to stay with Selena because they had locations pretty much anywhere, and I could be sure that the Wi-Fi would be reliable. And that's pretty much essential when you're moving around. And now, in terms of business model, I'm curious about this, David. So you had, I don't know if you still have a membership offer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. How is the membership? Which role does it have in attracting client to Outspot?
What people like is the flexibility. People like to be able to go between destinations, and they want to be able to do it when they want to do it, and they want to do it at one price that's really simple. And you know, that's what we're all trying to strive for: seamlessness. Unfortunately, the laws of property pricing and the limits of systems to be able to allow people to book between different locations hasn't caught up to people's desires. So we try and use the membership the best we can to allow people that flexibility to access more of our spaces under one price. It's something that's consistently evolving, but that's kind of why we want to be able to have that, and then to allow people to continue the conversations that they've started at an outpost wherever they may be. I mean, we're very fortunate, and many of us here on this call are very fortunate that people are entrusting us with a place to stay, and they want to be a part of what we're offering. And there are very few times in life, you know, outside college or school, where you're going into a new community where you want to plug in with others. So you can have a really formative experience with a lot of your members. And so for us, we see this membership as a way not only to give people the flexibility that they want to go from place to place, but also stay connected and come back.
So it helps building the community.
It helps staying engaged, correct, and then serving the needs serving the needs of our members.
Great, thank you. So I'm a bit curious now. It's more like a financial topic about rural co-living, but how can rural co-living spaces compete financially with urban ones?
We in a way we don't. We offer a differentiating product, and so we see that we complement them. And when people want to get away, they come to an outpost, and we offer. People come to an outpost because of the product itself, and the ease of transitioning to a new location. So typically, the co-living spaces in cities serve people who want to stay for several months or longer, and our stays are several months or shorter. So the business model is a little bit different. So it's not necessarily a competition per se. We won't match the price points of the city, but they won't match our lower lease or lower costs in other areas. We see it as complementary.
Mm-hmm. Stephen, do you have any insights about that thanks to your platform, or is it too much to ask?
We are platform, so we are not familiar with operators level, but definitely recently many people moving out of urban areas, and then they are pretty interested in living and working from rural areas. So yeah, definitely there's huge demand, and post the pandemic world, slow travel will be more norm. So definitely, there's huge opportunity for rural area operators, I think.
Thank you. I'm gonna ask 2 more questions, so do not hesitate to pop your questions in the chat, and we'll go to the Q&A in 5-10 minutes. So what changes have you seen with the pandemic that happened last year? And who, if I can ask this question, who is profiting from it, more the urban places or the rural places, and why?
Steve, did you want to start with that one and I'll come in?
Yeah, it's go back to my previous point, like the one of the biggest change during the pandemic, was there's huge paradigm shift how people work, right? Many people work remotely and then doing the demanding full-time employees. That's huge huge change we've seen. And then how to attract remote workers will be the key. And then many operators yeah, pivoting or doing some new ideas, and one of the idea is providing community and providing more work environment. So yeah, those changes we've seen as a platform, but I think David, you will have more clear insight as an operator.
I think the people who've lost out are people whose spaces people that their customers can't get to. I would put ourselves in there. Most of our customers can't travel, so we're on the short end there. And then spaces that offer spaces where people can get to are doing better. And spaces that are away, that give the sense of safety and security, I would assume have done far better. At the same time that we are seeing ourselves as someone who's lost out in this particular environment, we also see that our future is far brighter than it would have been if things were to shape out differently. So I'm excited for the future. I think we're all in a winning situation, whether people are staying with us for weeks or months or years at a time. I feel that the focus on connection will be even stronger, because what we're doing, at least in the US, is we've started to strip away ways that people used to meet organically. People don't go to the town bar anymore. They're not going to the local square to talk about politics. Outside school, we had work where people were going to on a consistent basis. So once we start to strip out all of the kind of the foundation, and people don't go to religious services much, there's a great opportunity for spaces like ours to fill in the gap and get that social fabric at least started on a small scale in a number of spaces.
Thank you. So on that note, let's talk about maybe the future of rural co-living movement. What do you think how would it be? What changes do you see happening in the industry, in the offering, in the competition in the next few years?
Okay, Steve.
I can go first. Yeah. Again, I believe work environment is very important for remote workers. And they are interested in living and working in the rural areas, but most of them still work from home, right? Because of the lack of work environment, the traditional hotels and Airbnb, usually they don't provide, work desk, work chair, and then usually, internet speed is not fast. And even co-living, probably some co-living. And if co-living operators provide, perfect work environment, it will be a huge differentiator. So again, we just launched our own units, and then we'll test it. And then if it works, we are willing to share the use case and knowledge with operators. So yeah, we are so excited about this experiment.
In terms of the future, it depends on, we see a little bit of deurbanization of cities. They seem to be going more towards suburbs than exurbs at the moment. But the opportunity for people to get away and spend periods of time in a rural area, I see as appealing. And our research shows that people do want to get away to those areas. Now, in terms of co-living, where people are living in rural areas for long periods of time, or rural products that focus on people who live in rural areas, that future I don't know and don't have as much insight into.
Thank you. Thank you very much to both of you. So I'm going to conclude the discussion here. And now we're going to go to the Q&A. Guy, did we get any question in the chat?
Yes, friends, we did. Hi, Steve and David, good to see you. We do have a few questions from the audience, and so I'm going to read them out. There's a bunch for both Steve and David. So let's do some ping pong here. Maybe let's start with one that's a bit very straightforward, and it's for David, which is why is Outpost considered a co-living space when it looks more similar to a hostel or a hotel than to a residential service?
Sure. So what is co-living? Is it community living? And so when people are coming to us, they want to be a part of who we are. Some people have the luxury of staying for months. Other people, unfortunately, want to come in for days at a time. So we look at ourselves as the reason why people choose Outpost. They don't choose it because of the thread count on the sheets. They don't choose it because of how big the room is. What they choose it on is because who's staying there, what events are going on. So at our heart, we're community living. To me, it doesn't depend on how long people are there.
Yeah, actually, I stayed at Outpost 2 years ago, and then I feel like, it's co-living.
Nice.
People are nice. Yeah, staff are not friendly, and yeah, guests are so nice. So, yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
That's a great experience.
Actually, Steve, there's a question for you as well, and the question is like, do you have or do you share any statistics which show the shifts in your consumer behavior? Do you have any stats on that, or have you shared anything? Do you have any reports or something that people can check out?
That's good question. So those data are pretty internal, but there's opportunity for content marketing. So yeah, let me talk to the team, and then yeah, probably we can put it together in a blog post.
Yes.
Great.
All right, let's go to something else. Let's get concrete a bit around like resident behavior, and I think like both of you here like might have some like real trends. So there's a question which is, what's your average stay / minimum stay? Maybe David, you can go first. Maybe Steve, you have then like some averages also to give on that. Sure.
The people stay, if you take the range on average, about 3 days to 2 to 3 months. The average stay is about 2 weeks. So that's if you filter in all of those people who are coming for 2-3 days at a time. For us, we're a new concept, we're a new product. People want to see what we're about, and we want to be able to welcome people into the lifestyle. So those short-term stays, people don't have those same types of engagement that they have if they stay longer. But they start to understand what our offering is about. And in terms of longer stays, we also have people who use our space for the workspace, but who happen to stay for years or longer. But that's a little bit different type of person.
Yes, and also because like you do offer the co-working option on top, or like exclusively a part of co-living.
Correct.
Yes. Steve, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, so as a platform, our minimum stay is 30 days. And then on average, people stay 90 days. So yeah, because of the minimum stay, people tend to stay longer. And then I would say 65% of customers extend their stay monthly basis.
Gotcha. And have you seen any like fluctuations recently? I mean, recently in the last like 2 years with the COVID crisis, like how's that been going?
Yeah, so when COVID hit seriously, like last April, most of our customers, move out, going back to their hometown or different locations. So it was a disaster. But we've seen people are getting coming back. We've seen booking volume slowly recovering, and then they getting back to normal step by step.
We hope they're gonna come back even more then, huh?
Yeah.
There is another question, and that question is related around buildings and ownership, and mostly I think to you, David. But it is A, do you own your buildings?
We do
And two,
not.
you also. So, go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I said we do not own our buildings.
Gotcha. That's a simple answer. Okay.
Right.
And then the other question, and therefore is, and that is Williams from Beehives that asked the question, which I did not write down, but I'll find it right now. There we go. You said, or he said it. You mentioned that you realized that your future was bigger properties. And so, what's kind of the average / ideal size of beds that you're looking for? Beds / rooms, however you want to answer that.
Sure, rooms, keys, yes. We'll look at properties that have 30 to 150 rooms would be where we're looking.
Okay. Is there a reason why that number? Why not more? Why not less?
Sure. So in a place like Ubud, a property that's in Bali, the property that's 150 rooms, there are about 3 of them or 4 of them, and it would be a very large property for the location. Alternatively, if we were to be into a city like Hanoi or Bangkok and came in with a 30-room property, it would be a little bit undersized. So it really has to do with 2 things. One, on the business side, the economics, and 2, what's the communal feel that we can provide, and how do we keep an outpost an outpost? And so based on those numbers, that's where we feel comfortable.
Yeah. Totally. Question also, like once you're gonna be opening up that space, then you're gonna be able or gonna have to fill your spaces in or spaces up. What are some of the best ways for you to actually acquire new customers? A part of platforms like Anyplace, of course. And then Steve, I'd love also like for you to get to the same question, which is like, how do you get people like to sign up to your platform and to use it? And do people use it more often?
Well, you took the answer from me, because I was going to say Steve, because he lines up the people quite well. And there are more of the people who are thinking like Steve, and how do they create these communities of workers and travelers that we're interested in. And we think a lot of the creativity is still developing. And just yesterday, I think Steve's product about focusing on workers, and so there's going to be a lot more opportunities and groups that are going to come up along the way that we think we can tag into. Historically, most of our bookings, 3/4 of our bookings are direct, which has been great. We feel that will shrink over time, especially as more curated offerings that focus on workers come about. I don't know exactly what they'll look like, but when we sit on Agoda, we feel we look funny. We're comparing our rooms to other hotel rooms, and it doesn't feel right, and it doesn't give the right experience to our members. So we think there are more platforms out there. There are partnerships with corporates, and there are a whole bunch of other nomad communities out there that we'd like to be a part of.
Gotcha. And then Steve, kind of same question to you, like how do most people like actually find Anyplace, and do they come once and then go, or do they come back? What's your strategy here?
So we acquire most customers organically, both of supply and demand, because there is no player wins in this space, like flexible housing space. So they are pretty satisfied with the product. Of course, we are keep improving our product even better than that. But most of them came from word of mouth or SEO, so pretty organic.
Gotcha. And actually, quick question: Steve, do you see any like group bookings?
Before pandemic, yes. We received some group booking requests for students or interns and church group, something like that.
Yeah. And for you, David, like, do you have any group bookings? Or even further, do you have any groups that approach you and say like, hey, would love to come to Outpost to spend a couple of weeks maybe, and then actually asking you to even facilitate that potentially for team retreats? And is that like a potential avenue for revenue model? Oh, 1 second, my friend. You
You're
are
muted,
muted.
David.
And
Yes,
there
I'm
we
sorry. We've worked with groups, and whether it's groups of people from individual companies, for example, Gojek, which is a large Indonesian unicorn, have people within our space, and then we work with a number of other travel groups and additional corporates that are interested in allowing their people to work remotely, but know that they have a professional environment that they're in. Are seeking out services like ours.
Gotcha. I think we have time for one final question before I give the microphone back to Sandra. And that is I think that might be the shortest answer that that can be done, and that is to you, David, which is, what is the ratio of community versus, or communal space versus room space? Are you 30-70, 60-40, 20-80?
It's easier when it's all in one building in a city, because how do I count the outdoor space? But it's probably 70-30.
So 70 communal or 70
70
rooms?
rooms, 30 communal. But I mean, if we took the outdoor space, it would flip. So I'd say 70-30.
Amazing, amazing. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, David. It's been a pleasure to moderate this panel.
Thank you for the invitation. Thank you all.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, guys.
And now...
And now